What a great song, guys. Hey, thanks so much for coming and doing it. You know, I saw you guys play, and the venues have gotten bigger, but I saw you guys play at a legendary place on the East Coast called Maxwell's. And Luke, it was great because you had the entire audience at one point sitting on the floor.
Just
so
right
you're
now.
used to people sitting and standing, which is a cool thing. Let's talk about the fact that you started out as a kid being exposed to music, mostly from your parents over in England, to gospel music as a child. And it wasn't until you discovered Michael Jackson's Off the Wall that you decided that, well, you know, I want to try something different, and started practicing and singing, like, you know, in front of the mirror as a kid. What was that like?
It was, you know, my dad's a gospel singer-songwriter. He doesn't do it as much as he did back then. So we were always, like, going to America, Australia, sort of like following him around as like a family. And that was really my first experience of like live music. And it's quite fitting actually, because it was always a spiritual experience. And my dad not only would tour gospel music, but he would always be leading the worship in every church that we went to. We moved quite a lot throughout the southwest of England. So I think that's kind of found its way somehow into like the way I perform in some weird way. And then, yeah, like you said, like I discovered sort of like popular music, as it were, starting with that particular album by Michael Jackson, which my mum brought me. And then I was obsessed, and I wanted to perform on some sort of level. I didn't really know what. I really wanted to dance. I begged and begged and begged my parents to let me try out for sort of like a dance boarding school, but they didn't want anyone else raising me. But that's all I wanted to do. And then singing sort of like came later on, sort of like in my early teens. And it's still an ongoing process.
Which is great. I mean, your performance obviously is a big part of what you guys do as a band. Now, talk about meeting Adam, because at the time when you were in your late teens going into your 20s, you guys got together, realized you had a lot of the same interests, whether it was bands like, you know, whether it was Queen or you know, it could have been Def Leppard. There were a lot of different things that you loved. There was a lot of things like, you know, T-Rex and Bowie and Mott the Hoople, a lot of things that were part of that 70s thing where people were not really afraid to go out and you know, really perform. So tell me about how you two got together, and when did you find out you were kindred spirits as far as the music you listened to?
I think musically we were quite different when we first met. We were both being watched by the same management. We both were in... it's quite funny. We were both in bands before the Struts. The two of us have only ever been in sort of like two groups. Adam had his group, which had the same goals and aspirations as did mine. And they sort of both naturally kind of like fell apart, you know, because we were both at that point where, you know, sort of friends go off to like university and further education and stuff like that.
Or get married or something like that.
Yeah, you know. And like my band in particular, it was still very coming from the same place as kind of like the Struts is in a lot of ways. It was very, you know, rock and roll, Led Zeppelin charged and Queen charged and whatnot. So when that fell apart, I would then got in touch. Well, this manager got in touch with me, who had already been watching Adam, and he said, you know, I really like this particular song, which is "Where Does She Go," which I'd been playing in my previous band. And he said, you know, do you still want to do music? And I was like, yeah, of course. And he said, look, Adam is in the same kind of predicament as you. You know, I think you guys should meet up and see what happens. So I went up to visit Adam, and we just sort of, you know, hung out for a bit and started to write some tracks. And very early on, it was very sort of like it was quite far from what it's become now. But we knew that like we complement each other. You know, it was Adam had like a desire to sort of like become a much better guitar player and change his style, and sort of I was bringing a lot of like new ideas and new bands to the table, and you know where a lot of people would be like, no, this isn't like, you know, what I'm about and whatnot. You know, sort of Adam just soaked everything in, and then his mum was also showing him things at that particular time. So it was like the perfect timing to be to meet, and then also as well to like both be listening to this music. So it just really went from there, you know.
Which is a cool thing. I know you guys like everything from Green Day to My Chemical Romance to Libertines.
Oh yeah, that's it. You know, Adam was a big Green Day fan, and I was sort of like more Stones, and you know, you put that together, and that's the early sound, the very, very early sound of the Struts. But we would, before we even had the band, we would play in a covers group in Adam's village, and Adam's village has how many pubs?
12.
12 pubs in one village, and like I think most of them like have live music, so we would like hang out, and that's where like me and Adam started to first really play rock and roll. We would do like Rolling Stones, Oasis, we'd play the Beatles, where sometimes it would just be me and him like acoustically, and then other times we would have sort of like his cousin would play like the bass, who's now our stage manager, actually. He's touring around with us. And then we would have like loads of musicians come in. So it was a really cool time. And it was great. We used to just get pissed out of our faces and just play for like 4 hours like at a time.
One night, I think we played Jumpin' Jack Flash like 5 times in one night till like 3 in the morning.
If you can imagine, it would probably be like similar sized crowd to yourselves, you know, similar age ranges as well, like pretty inebriated and, you know, shouting out, play it again. And I think we'd do Sympathy for the Devil. It would go on for about 25 minutes sometimes. You know. But it was good times, you know. But that's how you become a great band, you know?
Yeah, you really have to, it's about cutting your teeth in and practicing. And speaking of the Stones, you guys opened for the Stones in front of 80,000 people. How did that come down?
Well, I was talking before, could have been me, in terms of like how the Struts have managed to sort of break here in the US in terms of like our radio support. The UK from the very sort of like get-go never really has given us a chance via radio. They still haven't now, which is very bizarre, but the press is starting to catch on. Anyway, when we first initially released the debut album, sort of like well over, what was it, 2 years ago now?
2014, yeah.
Paris. There was a great radio station in Paris called WeFM, and they showed us great support. And before we knew it, they were playing Kiss This and Could Have Been Me. And we then did our first sort of like tour in France, and we were playing to like 700 people for the first time ever as our own headline shows. And so we did that for like a year. And I think when the Stones came to play at Stade de France, there was a band that was up for playing, and they had to like drop out. And luckily someone brought up our name, and we're like, you know, there's this young band, I think they could handle a big crowd, and I've seen them a couple of times. So I think that's how we got the gig. But Mick and the band would have all had to approve. So I think that's the coolest thing.
Yeah, a band that you love and admired, and having you guys on the bill.
From that gig, we kind of got the attention of our American team that we've been working with here now. So actually that all was quite serendipitous to fall into place and meant that we could come over here.
That's great.
And everyone brings it up in every single interview 2 years later.
But that's a big deal. It's a big deal.
It is a big deal, yeah.
You know, it's great when a band that you love and admire recognizes you and sees you in that way. Well, I just want to let you do one more song. I want to let everybody know tonight you'll be at the Ritz in San Jose, and you'll be playing Saturday at Bottle Rock. But so great to have you guys here, and congratulations on the way that things are really taking hold, and it's good to see you again. All
Thank
right,
you
guys?
very much.
Thank you.
You got it.